Hello everyone, it's Peter here, Piotr Fisner. How you doing, guys? Hello. So today we've got a special episode for those who would like to start learning electronics, and I've recorded some videos about it in the past in the playlist, and now I will add one more video about basic components, okay? Because I've shown those videos and people didn't know what to do next. What's the next step? So yeah, like Sorin does on his channel, let's do coffee and electronics. Now there are just a few components which are worth understanding. When you've got those basics of those components, then you don't really need all the variations of them, but you will know how to apply electronics knowledge to the rest. And of course it might be confusing at the start, but the more you practice, the more better you become. So it's worth. So I've got here a few things. I'll show you. So I've got some old ones as well, which I removed here. Okay, so these are capacitors, electrolytic capacitors. With electrolytic capacitors, polarity matters. So that means if the plus is a plus, you see, that's plenty of them inside. I'm buying, checking, doing the stock inventory, so that I know which ones I have, which ones I don't have. I can say to you that there are values which are repeating when you repair stuff, and there are values which are least common. So that these are the electrolytic capacitors. Yes, a capacitor, and you see there is a gray thing which represent this pin at the top. So that's line up, and when it's lining up, you know that that's a minus. Okay, there is an arrow as well, sometimes no, sometimes something else, but it doesn't matter. The most important part is that the gray part is on this pin, and on this pin you don't have gray color, so that's a positive terminal. Now you might have capacitors looking differently when you work with TVs or with hi-fi audio or with hot air station. My one, this will have still symbol C as a capacitor on the PCB, on the printed circuit board, but this value is 105K. So this can be confusing for you, so it's good to just Google it. Other capacitors like polymer or others can look differently as well, like here, yes. But again, the more you work with them, the more you'll know them, and then when you see on the circuitry, you see how the circuitry is built, then more you know which ones are the capacitors, for instance, or other components. Yes, now here are PCBs, several of the buck converters. That small here fella, don't know if you can see it, I'll point out with something, okay, or with this one, and I'll point you where it is. Oh, this small fella is a capacitor as well. Yes, it's I don't know what the value. I would have to take the meter and check it. You've got capacitance meter for checking capacitors. You can't read capacitance with many those cheap meters. Some of them have, but have limitations. As you see, you've got like UF, NF, and PF values. Yes, so this is a and the MF as well. Yes, so the MFs are here. Those are mini-farads. This is the biggest capacity. Then the microfarads are 10 to minus 9th. Then the nano is 10 to minus 10 to minus 6 is micro, 10 to minus 9 is nano, and pico is 10 to minus 12. You can learn more about them, but that's the basics. So yeah, that's it. Then you've got other components, which are resistors, for instance. These are 2 watts resistors, or you see more capacitors, arrows here in these ones. Now this size is 2 watts, that size of 2 watts, and for comparison you've got 0.25 watt. Yes, so you see how big this one is and how small this one is. These are aluminum capacitors. Yes, that's how aluminum capacitors looks like. So that's it. That's 1 watt. Yes, that's one quantity 10, 2.2 kilo ohms. Yes, that's 1 watt. So you can see 2 watts and 1 watt. Yes, they are. You can distinguish the difference. I don't know if the camera is showing that, but that's what it is. I can't put them together because these came and I didn't book them in yet, so they can't mixed up. I didn't have 2 watts. Yes, I had up to 1 watt capacitors and resistors. Sorry. And then here you've got resistors as well, which are in the R, which is ohms, and KR, which are kilo ohms. So it's let's say 3K, it's 3000 ohms, or 3K3 is, let's say, 3300 ohms. Yes, that's what it is. The same with capacitors, you know, or you see how tiny they are. Yes, so you can see that you've got those are 0805 size of the capacitors. These are quite big still. You can grab them with tweezers. So it's, you know, it's like, it's quite big. These are varistors as well. So these have different resistance when there is a current going through, and when there is a short, it will put resistance inside, so it's no resistance, it's open, but when there will be a problem in the circuitry, then it will close itself and will transfer the current through the fuse, and fuse will blow. Yes, those are the varistors. So it's worth knowing when you start to learn with power supplies. When you don't work with power supplies, it doesn't matter. But capacitors and resistors are the most common things used in the electronics, and you will see many faults with electronics when it comes to these two. You've got 0 ohm resistors as well, so that means 0 resistance in them. Yes. Here I want to check if I got any transistors. That's how transistor can look like. MOSFET can look like as well, like that. So I'll tell you more about those components in the while. I just wanted to show you. And do I have more transistors? Yeah, when you've got 2 legs, it can be a diode. Just a diode, another component worth knowing. So if you want, just write down these names and learn about them more. Diode is transferring current through one direction, whereas that transistor, for instance, or MOSFET, it's more like a switch. Yes, when you get switching power supply rather than linear, you use them more even. So what it is when you provide current at one leg, then across those two will go current through. Yes, in the transistor. But I'm checking if I should have more, but I was tidying up and I transferred. And that's the bridge rectifier. That's something which is really common as well when you work with power supplies. So the inner side will have, you won't be able probably to see it on the, oh, you are, okay, so you've got plus, on my thumb you've got minus, and on my fuck you finger you've got plus. Yes, and inside you've got like a sinusoid line times 2. Yes, so inside you put AC and outgoing DC, and you can see that it's a cut corner here where you've got a plus. So it's good always to, you know those things, because it's easier to recognize them. So okay, so again, diode gets current through only one direction. Transistor is more like a switch. Yes, electronic switch, on off. Capacitor is like a battery, but it's a short charge period cycle, and then it's a quick discharge because it has less capacitance than the battery, but it's quicker. Yes, so that's what we need. Resistors are limiting the amount of current. Yes, it's not always good to use resistors because they are getting hot, and when they are getting hot, they can cause sometimes more trouble than it's worth. You can see especially very hot resistors at hi-fi equipment. When you open some hi-fi equipment like audio amplifier, you can see that certain places are darker. That means resistors are getting really hot over there. It's usually several of them. So yeah, so those are the basic components. So you know capacitors, you know diodes. You've got variations. Yes, like I've showed you with capacitors, you've got the same with diodes. You've got silicon diode, you've got Schottky diode, you've got Zener diode, yes, and there are other diodes as well. So those three are the most popular ones. Zener is for protection, and bridge rectifier contains 2 or 4, in this case will be 4 diodes, yes. So bridge rectifier consists of 4 diodes, and 4 diodes create from AC, ADC. It's not perfect, it's not smooth, you still need to smooth it, like capacitor to smooth it, for instance. In some cases coils, but in general it's switch from the AC to the DC. Because AC is like that, yes, it's sinusoid, and DC is flat. So yeah, so that's what it is. What else I can tell you about those components here? Yeah, so diodes can have different variations. Those are one of the diodes. Usually you get those silicon diodes, which are more popular, but if you can write it down and you can learn it, then that's fine. So components which I recommend always to learn first are capacitors, resistors, diodes, transistors, because the variation of them are MOSFETs, which are commonly used in the industry here when we working with the devices. ICs, which is integrated circuitry, which is chips. Then you'll have chips across all the devices, encoders, processors, and much more. Yes. Now there are more complex basic components like double MOSFETs. You can have double MOSFETs. And what else I can tell you, so the video won't be too long, but you will have more value. Okay, so let's check. Capacitors, resistors, transistors, varistors, even I've told you, you can read about them as well if you want to learn about power supplies, because they are quite good. Coils, yes, coils. You can read about coils, and there are 2 types of coils, with a ferrite inside or without. You can Google types of coils and what they are. Transformers are another ones. Transformer is like a bigger version of what coil can do, and have a primary and secondary winding. So I'll show you here more complex one. Yes, so here is the primary. You plug in 240 volts here, yes, and you've got your live and neutral wire. This is shorted, so this one is faulty transformer. This is from JVC, excuse me, Wolf Hi-Fi, excuse me, that's the coffee, you know, guys. And this one is a toroidal transformer. You won't see the many. It has 17 cables. Usually you've got 2 on the input, on the primary winding, and 2 or 3 you've got on the outgoing. Sometimes you might have one more, depend which one it is. This one is toroidal. This one can have 300 watts, for instance, so that's a big one, but it has many voltages. When you see 2 are just, you know, like live and neutral, where you see 3, you've got 2 voltages of the same kind and neutral, yes. So you can see that it's quite a few of them, and then you've got one strong here with a thicker wires. So this need a rewind, or you can't get a new one, so this would be a no fix for the customer if we can't rewind it. I found a company in Poland. Well, actually my marketing team girl found 3 companies, and we want to speak to them about doing jobs for us, yes, for rewinding transformers. So yeah, those components are the most common. You've got fuses, but again, 0 ohm resistors can work as a fuse as well. You just need to understand to not put the wrong component at the wrong place. And then you've got that's, you can read about it, that's SAP SAP 16NY, and PY is the second one. That's amplifier, yes, for the hi-fi. So you don't need to know them. Those are integrated circuits, yes, like a transistors, more a bit advanced, and they are amplifying audio. On the output, you need to have capacitors. If you won't have capacitors, the voltage will go to the speaker and will burn the speaker, or will give you buzzing noise, like a ooh or something, yes. Okay. So that's pretty much it. The rest you really don't have to know from top of your head, but if you can learn those, that's a really good start. If you are more of a visual person, you can go Google it, see it, look at it, so it's better. Read and make notes, because when we make notes we tend to remember better, yes, as humans. So if you will read once, you can't grasp it yet, read it again or find another resource, do it, and this way you can memorize it better. I'm thinking what else I could tell you still. Now I see that I've told you all the basics, and then how to measure them, yes. So how to measure them, we've got, you've seen the capacitance meter, and there is a regular meter as well, so you'll have to learn how to use it. This is from the 90s, so this is a really old one. Yeah, I'm not a young guy. But what I want to say is, if you look after your stuff, you see, can last for really many years and be in a good shape still. Yes, you need to calibrate every so often if you want to, of course, have more accurate readings, but in general it's a good stuff. Okay, I think for the first video of those components it's fine. But it would be really better if you can do your own research about them, memorize it in your own way. Either you're a visual, or you're a listener, or you're a reader, you know, so it's up to you. But it would be good to spend some time. And then I can tell you only this: certain components you can read in the circuitry, but certain components can sum up. And capacitors can sum up in a bit odd way, so sometimes you might see weird readings, yes, when you read capacitance, and you will say, why, it's, you know, like it should be much more, it's faulty. No, take them out from the board and you will see that they will have what they should. So understanding circuitry is another level, yes. These were only basics, and when you're measuring stuff out of the circuitry, you're more certain. That's why methodology of testing is another topic, and you can't always assume things. You need to know things, how to measure, because then you will be removing too many components, whereas you could only remove a few and then know. For instance, to test if the transformer is faulty, you know in certain cases when it's worth to desolder something at the front of it, yes, and then you know that there is nothing else causing the short, so it has to be transformer even without removing it. So it is a practice, I'd say. Yes, it is a practice. But okay, that's it in this video. We've got 20 minutes of the recording. I think that's enough. Hopefully you've learned something out of it. Hopefully it's a valuable material. You could leave us a like button. Here's likes to you. Thank you for watching. I will think maybe tomorrow I'll record one more about basics of the repairs. But for today it's everything. Thank you guys. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.